topics or questions about outsourcing. And in exchange for you being with us and giving us an hour of your time, you're going to be leaving with information about outsourcing in various perspectives that perhaps you didn't come in with, or if you did come in with some information about it, this might be an enhancement of that. So that's this morning's majority of our time together will be ensuring, the panel, ensuring that our promise to you is kept. In other words, you really will get information about those 6 bullet points in that invitation. The reason I bring all this up is because, like you, I've also accepted invitations to various seminars, and they've always said, and if you come, you're going to get this and this and this, and then you wind up going, and at the end of the thing, you say to yourself, what about all the stuff I was supposed to get that I didn't get? Well, that's not going to happen today. You're going to get, and those specific topics are going to be answered for you. But before we get into that, and before we have the panelists introduce themselves to you, let me set the table a little bit for today's conversation. The term outsourcing has been around and has gotten lots of media attention for about 25 years. So this is not just something that happened last week or last month. Outsourcing has been with us in various forms and for various reasons for quite a while. It started with Fortune 500 companies basically taking aspects of their operations, generally speaking, you probably remember a lot of this in the press years ago, call centers were taken out of the United States and sent over and installed in either India. India at the time was the sort of the destination of choice for some of that. Also accounts payable operations and other kinds of operations were basically transferred. The responsibility of those functions were transferred from the companies themselves, and the companies were like GE and ITT and people like that, big Fortune 500 companies. And responsibility for running those functions was transferred out of those companies into a third party, namely companies in India, Pakistan, China, and the list goes on. Indonesia now is becoming a big haven for various kinds of outsourcing operations. The driver of that initially was cost reduction, operating cost reduction, and indeed there was some. But as time went on, outsourcers also began to see, and companies outsourcing their operations began to see, that wait a minute, there's some other advantages here too. There's some operational advantages which are above and beyond or sort of in conjunction with those cost savings, and also there's strategic reasons to do it as well. So the whole idea of outsourcing became broader, but also something else happened, which is that it migrated from the large Fortune 500 companies to now down into small to mid-sized companies. And that caused business owners to begin to ask themselves, well, should I consider outsourcing as a tool that I can use in my toolkit, my management toolkit, to either improve my business or to give me a competitive advantage, or both? So our reason for being here today is to have these folks who are experts in outsourcing in various ways to discuss with you what they call, what the panelists call the paradox of outsourcing. And the paradox of outsourcing is solving or improving an internal function or operation via a third-party resource. In other words, a resource outside the company. And so that's really going to be the essence of what we're going to be discussing today. And we're going to use the context of those 6 topics that were in your invitation as a way to do that. If we have time left in the hour after these folks describe to you the answers, or at least their perspectives on those 6 topics, if we have time left, then we're going to open it up to questions from you. So let's have a brief introduction, folks. Remember, did you hear the term brief? A brief introduction for our panelists, starting with Barry.
Hi, I want to thank you all for coming on this unbelievably crazy morning with the weather. My name is Barry Pollard. My company is a DB Corporation. I started it 20 years ago with a partner, and we went after mostly Fortune 1000 companies, and we did computer work for them. You name anything to do with computers, we did it. About 9 years ago, I switched the focus from going after Fortune 1000 companies to going after small businesses. In that switch, we have turned ourselves into an outsourcing managed services IT firm is what the buzzword is these days. And we take care of everybody's computer systems, soup to nuts. You name it, we do it for them. And it just has been working out very well.
Good, thanks, Barry. Maurice?
My name is Maurice Benson. I'm actually the president of Mover. We are a business development and sales outsourcing company. We partner with small to medium-sized, primarily service-based businesses to act in a role as their sales leadership. In some cases, part of their feet on the street. We help them with their organic growth and actually their top-line sales. We also work in the area of recruiting and hiring, training and development, and we also their marketing and branding and go-to-market strategy and redefining and redeveloping that. So Maurice Benson of Mover, and I'd also like to thank each one of you for attending this morning.
Good, thanks, Maurice. Jay?
Hi, my name is Jay Petrick. I'm a senior manager here at Tandem HR. I've been in the outsourcing space for about 18 years in different capacities. I've been in HR, human resources outsourcing, for about 14 of those years. Tandem HR, we are an outsourced solution for human resources. What we try and deliver is a Fortune 500 style of human resources infrastructure to the small and mid-sized business. We've been in business for about 20 years here. That's what I do.
Thanks, Jay. Walter?
I'm Walter Miller. My company is Norman Professional Services. We function as outsourced accounting department. That can go anywhere from very transactional, opening mail, paying bills, doing billing for clients, calling up and asking why the clients haven't paid, of course, posting of transactions, reconciling, anything you can imagine an accounting department doing for a small business, we will do. We also thrive at functioning as a CFO for those smaller businesses, so we take ownership of all the internal management reports and making sure that the financial information that the accounting and the bookkeeping creates is being utilized and made aware to the ownership so that they can make better informed decisions to move forward. Walter Miller with Norman Professional Services.
Great. And that just reminds you of hi, my name is Bonnet, James Bonnet. Nice job, Walter, thank you. Okay, we're now going to begin to get into, as promised, those 6 topics, so we can start delivering on this promise. But before we do that, it's been my experience in facilitating other meetings with other groups occasionally, that somebody sometimes is sitting in the audience with a question that is so burning and so urgent and so life or death threatening. You get the picture. So here's your chance. Is there anybody here that has anything near that they want to ask before we actually have the panel get into, and it could be anything about outsourcing. You know, probably not, are the Bears going to be in the Super Bowl? That's probably not for today. I'd be happy to talk to you about that, by the way, but not today. So does anybody have anything like that in their head or their craw that they just got to ask? It's better to do it now.
I've got one.
Okay, I knew it. I got a customer. Yes, please.
The areas of the outsourcing here fit nicely into an organizational chart. We've got different boxes covered. The one I don't see is research and development. Is there any type of firm that would do some research and development for a new product or a new service, you know, under a confidential, obviously, umbrella, that you all might know?
Folks?
Absolutely. Actually, one of the partner firms that we work with does exactly that. He is a long time, he started out in IT, believe it or not, and then moved into other areas of marketing. And what his company does now is exactly that. He helps, if a company says, we have a new product, do you think it'll work? He'll go out and do the market research to figure out if there is a market for it, number one. Number two, what is it saturated with? What are the possibilities? So they absolutely have that capability out there.
Okay, thank you.
I'll also give you one as well. What is your name?
Harry McKay.
Hi, Harry. I'll also give you one, too, out of my background. My business career started with Xerox years ago, many years ago. And the Xerox story is a fascinating story. If any of you may not know it, it's a really good, interesting history to read. But when Chester Carlson invented xerography, he tried his best to commercialize it and actually take it from a scientific stage to actually a commercial product stage. And he went to Kodak, and he went to IBM, and he went to a lot of other places, and they all said, no, you're nuts, get out of here. So he went to a guy that was running a small business in Rochester, New York. The guy's name was Joe Wilson. And Joe had a family business, a photographic supply business, 3 or 4 generations long, nicely profitable. And Joe said, yeah, I'll take a flyer on it. But what we want to do is have a company in Ohio do further research on it and then take it to a commercial level. And that company is the Battelle Institute. Battelle, B-A-T-T-E-L-L-E, Battelle Institute in Ohio. So that's another option for you, that's what they do. And one of their claims to fame is taking xerography from an interesting mad scientist invention in a basement somewhere, which is really kind of the story, to maybe one of the most successful business stories of the 20th century. And I was privileged to have some little part of that in the early days of it. So that's, yes, sir.
I thought of one more.
Yes.
Just have a general question.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to outsourcing, how do you overcome the clients saying, our business is different, and I don't know if your general solution is going to really fit my company because, we're all different here. Is that something that comes up a lot, or
What is your name?
Michael Liss?
Michael. Did I pay you to ask that? Good. I want everybody here to know I didn't salt the audience with my, the reason I bring it up. Thank you for asking that.
You paid me.
I know I did. Barry, I know I did. Barry, and part of the deal was you wouldn't disclose that. So now I got to do a clawback. I want the money back. Okay. Great question. And as a matter of fact, one of the 6 topics that I'm going to ask them to respond to, the first one happens to be, and see, this is probably fairly close to yours. How would outsourcing work in my company as a unique entity? Is that close enough?
Close enough.
Okay. Barry, take that.
Again, my prism to look at things is from an IT point of view, and we absolutely go into companies and they say exactly that. A perfect example is a small law firm that has a piece of software that was written 10 years ago. And that piece of software generates $5 million a year in revenue. It's a very unique thing that they do. So they said, there's no way you can help us. And I said, well, let me understand more about it. And sure enough, because they were so worried about their software, they had all these other things that were going on within their office that we can help with. Now, the software we couldn't, but everything else we did. And they've been a customer for 4 years now. So it's more of just kind of educating, in my opinion, the client to understand what is it that we can provide you. And there's sometimes it can't. If you can't help you, you're right. It's not going to work. But in that case, which I think was one of the best ones, are like, there's no way you can help us. They turned into one of our best customers because of the huge range of things that outsourcing can bring to them.
Could you go a little bit deeper, Barry, and suggest to these folks, what are some of the characteristics of that, I guess, what is it, software? That software?
Yeah,
that made it amenable to outsourcing?
Well, again, the software runs on a bunch of computers and other things to make it work. And that's what we are excellent at, making that stuff work properly, so all this other stuff that you have works properly. Because underlying everything is this base code that IT people call it. The operating system is a very useful term people use, but that stuff there's no glamour to it. It doesn't do anything cool. It doesn't, no one likes it because they don't know what it is. Well, my company is very, very good at keeping that stuff going properly, which then allows cool websites, cool apps, your phone, all this stuff to work. But if you don't have the underlying thing set up properly and maintained, bad things happen. And so in that case, they had this really cool software, but it was running on really old, bad stuff, not because it was their fault, they just didn't think about other things. So we came in and kind of cleaned up a lot of that stuff, and now the thing is running very, very well. I mean, it used to go down once a month, and for a software that generates that kind of money, when that's down, people are freaking out. So we came in, and it still goes down because it's a 10-year-old piece of software, but it's maybe twice a year is when it's down. And then, obviously because we were there, we can get it back up quickly, but that's the kind of things that we can bring that a customer sometimes doesn't think about because they're so focused on what, their burning issues are.
I think it's fair to say that a good outsourcing relationship, in whatever function it is, I don't think there's probably a one-size-fits-all out there. I think it really is a question of the potential customer disclosing everything that he possibly can about their operations with a potential provider, like Barry in this case, and working through and seeing what the fit really is. And it's probably unique, and some of it's, as we were saying earlier, some of it's a cost driver, and some of it's a operational advantage driver. In this case, it sounds like an operational advantage for sure. And in some cases, it may even be strategic. It may be, this is the best way for us to do it, to get a strategic advantage. So, does that help at all with, Walter?
Say, we will take clients through an exercise. I often tell clients, every client, you're sort of like all businesses are a puzzle with 10 pieces, okay? And I believe that probably all of our businesses share 7 pieces. Not the same 7 pieces. And so I'll tell a client, our job is to figure out as quickly as possible which are the 7 familiar pieces and which are the 3 brand new pieces and how they all fit together. So in order to do that, we will take a client through a process. Our interest, of course, is in the accounting systems, where we flow chart money. We start by asking a question: your prospect has just become a customer? They said yes. What's the next thing that happened? We keep asking that question until they say, and then we put the money in the bank. We do the same with payables. Sometimes payroll and timekeeping is important. The result of that is a flow chart that we're then able to sit down with the client and we get their buy-in. So to answer Michael's question, by the time we're done with that process, the client has been heard. They have been understood. So the parts that are just like everybody else, we may not have verbalized to the client, this is just like everybody else, but we're at least aware of that. And the parts that are unique to them, we're also aware of that. And I know, having seen Tandem in action, you guys do a lot of the similar kind of stuff.
Absolutely. It's not about going in with a solution. It's about meeting with the prospective client and figuring out how they're doing it now versus how it could be done potentially by partnering with us. And if there's value there, then it's mutually beneficial. But it's discovery. It's explaining how we do things and finding out how you're currently doing it.
So it's a multiple step process.
Without a doubt.
So this is not a 5-minute, yeah, I got it, let's go ahead.
Dave, we have a question in the back.
Question, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, because when I hear Walter and Barry and the part of outsourcing that you guys deal with, you have a ton of information from a company that they're outsourcing. And just in my mind, it keeps going back. I could see when someone wants to outsource, one of their main concerns would be giving that information up to a third party. And part of that is also the outsourcing of having, like we said, this company do your market research, because you have patents, what have you. And if you don't, then
Absolutely.
goodness, you could get in trouble.
Absolutely.
So how do you guys handle that in your businesses to overcome that, so the clients kind of get past that and say, okay, I'm opening up the door to you and let's talk?
So I'm going to let you put your nose under the temp flap, and I want to be sure that I'm going to be okay after that, right?
Yeah,
Trust and confidence
yeah,
kind of thing?
right.
Yes.
I would say, first and foremost, each one of us is probably required to assign NDAs for the clients that we work with.
Sure.
So that information is proprietary and we have no ability to share it other than internally and how it's going to be used. And so I would say that that's pretty much the same across the board.
I'm collecting information from employers that will have individual employee social security numbers, medical history that I'm qualified to obtain and look at, but I'm certified in certain areas. But the non-disclosures are very important because business owners are entrusting us, all 4 of us up here, with analyzing information that is very, very private and important to their business.
Anybody else would want to say anything about that?
Well, you know, with our stuff, it's passwords. You know, you have a way to log in and look at anything. Most of our, when we take on a new client, the first thing they want to do is give us the magic password to the main thing. And we say, we want you to let us log in with that. Then we set up our own accounts that give us access to everything. And then we tell them, change that password now. And then why that psychologically helps them, I think, is because they realize if we did something bad or if something, you know, happened, they could trace how it happened through our login. If they want to get rid of us, luckily that's never happened, but if they did, they would just have to turn off that one login. And so that's kind of how we approach it, because we have, just as Jay said, we have, you know, I have physicians, medical records, silly thing, or not silly, but recipes from sausage manufacturer that literally, if they lost, they would be out of business, because that's the unique piece that they have. So we work with them, and you know, it's funny because I'll walk into their office and I'll see a piece of paper laying on the desk with the recipe. And I'll say, hey, Amy, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You know what I mean? So there is a level of trust that I have now with them, but it's funny because I can point out, you know, you were worried about us, yet you know, people write their passwords down right there. And so it's kind of a little cat and mouse game in that I'm trying to make them understand that we are not in it at all to do anything, because we want you to pay us forever. So, but it is a very unique situation because everything now is digital, everything. And we have a lot of power. My engineers have a lot of power. And I always think, you know, I'll sign anything, but it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, it's if I'm going to do something, I can do it. So the idea is, look, this is our steps to show you that we want you to trace us. If something happened, we want you to be able to get in and know exactly who did what. And that's kind of how we do it.
Good?
That was good, yeah. Thank
Great.
you.
Okay, good. Okay, let's move on to the second topic of this promised 6. And here it is. How can I gain an edge on my competition by outsourcing? And we're going to ask Maurice to get us started on that one.
I believe, and I'm sure we all share, that each organization as it launches goes through a life cycle of growth. And each one of our businesses actually align with an employer at a certain stage of growth. And so a two-man operation could certainly utilize his solution, but not the two of us. But as they continue and want to scale, the competitive advantage they gain is actually doing literally what they love and the part of running their business. They've come up with a great concept. They've started to grow. It's more than a lifestyle business, and all of a sudden they want top-line growth. They want to manage the resources internally relevant to their finances. They have compliance levels that they have crossed relative to HR, and then IT, because there are more users and more equipment that is there. So the competitive edge is literally allowing them to go do what they love in running their business, but also having the capability to grow to scale and doing it at the fraction of the cost of having to pay for a full-time employee. Then leaving them back to do that, they now can be competitive, but they also can attract and retain some really key employees by implementing outsourced services along these lines.
Any other follow-up questions to Maurice about that topic? We're good? Everybody good? Okay. Thanks, Maurice. Okay, the next topic, learn how to do the math, the cost-benefit outsourcing equation, and because that probably will entail extraordinarily high levels of advanced math, both Walter and Jay are going to take care of that.
I think the first thing to understand in doing the math of the cost is that all 4 of us, if you looked on the income statement, all 4 of us would line up somewhere in the operating expenses. And that's an accounting way of saying that we're all non-core. None of us are about why the client or how the client makes money. We're in the business of activities that support whatever it is the client is doing to make money. So typically in the cost savings is going to lie in reducing or controlling overhead. Jay can talk more about the difference between, you know, if you add not only the wages, but you start to add payroll taxes, benefits, you're talking dollars that you have to deal with. And then you also start to talk about some compliance issues. If your business closes for a week, because I have a client who takes off between Christmas and New Year's, and we're not working for you a week, guess what? You're not paying us for that week. We're not on vacation. You're just not paying us for that week. So it's this shifting of some of your payroll costs. There's often the outsourcer can create greater efficiencies, so less time is needed. And whatever the outsourcer is charging you, it's some function of time. And then lastly, you're paying sort of as you need it. You're not paying. If you were using an internal resource, you might have someone on a full-time salary who's not being utilized 40 hours a week to do that. And so you may have to be creating work for them. You should talk.
Yeah, so when I partner with a company, I'll just use a 50-employee company, for example. I look at sitting down with the business owner or some level of executive within the organization, and I'll talk to them and I'll find out what their hard costs are for having employees, meaning you have to pay those people. You're probably using an outsourced payroll solution like an ADP or a Paychex. You have the cost of benefits. You have the cost of somebody internally that is handling HR. It could be, that could lead into soft costs, but it could be a receptionist or an office manager that's really not that qualified. So there's a number of areas, workers' compensation insurance that is mandatory to have as a business. 401k, there's costs associated with 401k. So I go through all these items of hard costs, and then I start looking at potential soft cost savings that I can add in there. Well, if I'm charging a company $50,000 annually for us to provide a team of 6 individuals that are going to handle payroll, workers' comp, risk and safety management, benefits and benefits administration, 401k administration, human resources, compliance, liability protection, that team, can you hire that team for $50,000 annually? No, the answer is always no. But it might not even cost you $50,000 because that's where the offsets come in. So if you're paying ADP $10,000 a year for payroll, that's an offset. Now we went from $50,000 to $40,000. You're spending $5,000 for 401k administration. Now you're at $35,000. So you can see those cost offsets drop. So now the argument becomes, or the approach becomes, can you hire a team of 6 professionals for $20,000? So that's where that cost benefit comes into play.
Anybody have any follow-on questions for the panel about that? About the cost benefit equations?
At what point does the number of employees dictate that type of service level? I mean, in all likelihood, someone in Walter's client's organization that's doing the accounting on a daily basis is also wearing the hat of HR, is also doing the hiring and firing, is also doing every other aspect of that.
Sure.
At what time in the company's lifestyle does it make sense to bring a professional like yourself in?
Speaking just from the outsourced solution for human resources, there's key benchmarks for employee size of companies. So you have 10 employees, which means you're getting to the point where you have to adhere to a lot of the federal and state laws, rules, regulations. Then you get to 20, and they add about 50% more. Then you get to 50. At 50, you might as well be 50,000 employees because you have to adhere to pretty much everything, state and federal. So those are some of the benchmarks. When you get to 10, you have to be compliant in a lot more areas than you would be if you had 5 employees. So we look at those benchmarks. Usually the smaller size company, it's that return on investment that I like to say. It's harder to show for a business owner in my line of work. These gentlemen might be different, but usually 10 on up.
But you actually, even though those employee milestones are there, you may have an organization that is growing really quickly. So they may start at 5, but they're going to ramp to 10, then to 20, and then to 50 very quickly. So having the HR solution in place and preparation for that growth actually makes a whole lot of sense as opposed to waiting until you get there.
I have a follow-on question for them as well, but anybody else at this point? Okay, no? My follow-on question from you folks is, do you find in your outsourcing experiences with various clients that the direct operating costs that Walter was alluding to, are they always at least cost neutral, cash neutral? As opposed to, I mean, as compared to doing it internally? In other words, there may be other reasons, like getting subject matter expertise that I can't afford to hire on my own staff. So that would be true in your case, Jay.
Correct.
But does it always have to be, cost neutral? Meaning it doesn't cost me more, but it may not be costing me less, but I'm willing to trade dollars to get something else from these guys. You understand? Does that make sense to anybody?
In my experience, it's always cost neutral unless, and the unless is, I find in the sales discovery process, there's often an awareness by the person that's going to outsource me. Oh, you guys can do that? Oh, you guys can do that? Oh, you can do that? And there's often a list of things they've never had in their business before that are now available to them. And so if it does end up costing more, it's almost always because they're asking for more than what they've got going on right now. It's improving what's existing. You guys find that?
My conversations with an owner, and I can't speak for the rest of you, but they have a tendency to be a little bit different because of the line that I impact. Because we're focusing on organic growth or top level or top sales line growth, they have a tendency to listen with a different ear. And as far as the cost goes, they see it more as an investment, knowing that we're going to go through an entire process to help them grow organically or increase the top line sales. So I get less reverb back when it comes to talking with an owner.
Okay. Anybody else? Barry?
Yeah, my stuff always is neutral or less because the size of our customers are 100 computers or less. That's our market. And at that level, generally they don't have somebody on staff that will do that. Although we have 2 clients that have that, and we kind of direct them. That's how it's happened over the evolution of the outsourcing. But what Walter alluded to that is I have a team of 7 engineers that are very, very skilled. Each person doesn't know everything. But when there's a problem, the company owner is not talking to his IT person that he used to have on staff and praying this guy can figure or girl can figure it out. When something happens, we have 7 people, me included, and I'm old now, but I used to be pretty good at this stuff, to come up with ideas to solve the problem quickly. And that's what our customers over the years have said. They remember when they had either an individual in their staff that was trying to do this, or they had an outsourced person, again, just an individual, and they would be in their office working on something for hours, if not days, and it was just, what do I do now? The owner would be. Whereas with our stuff, we have something unique, and that stuff happens still unique. I have 7 people trying to figure it out. It's not, and they're not paying for those 7 people. It's just the one price, and that's what I think brings us to always neutral, if not cheaper, than if they had a person on staff.
Okay. Good. Let's move on to the next topic, which, by the way, Barry, is yours. So keep talking. And the topic basically is why have small to mid-sized companies followed the Fortune 500 into outsourcing? Both, and not only just offshore outsourcing, but also domestic outsourcing. Barry?
To me, it's cost. It's that simple. I came out of Quaker Oats and another company called Chicago Title and Trust, very big companies. And we were doing outsourcing then. I was part of the IT staff at the time, and they would do the mainframes. They still exist, believe it or not, but they're massive computers. And they would actually have IBM or Amdahl, the big players at the time, take over the entire operation. So they would do everything. They would have a staff of probably 50 people come into Quaker Oats, for example, and they would be employees of IBM, but they would be working at Quaker doing everything that Quaker employees used to do. But it cost millions of dollars. what's happened with technology, again, from the technology point of view, everything's cheaper, everything's faster, everything's smaller. So now that same level of support that Quaker used to pay millions for, customers, small businesses can pay fractions of that and still get that level of support. To me, that's why they moved to the outsourcing model as quickly as the big firms used to do, because of cost. It's just cheaper.
I think there's also, I know just talking amongst ourselves and preparing for this, I think the other reason it's come down is that I think there's been enough history with outsourcing that clients will perceive it as a strategic need. Tandem and my company, we share a client, and from day one, this client said, I want to do, the only thing I'm interested in doing is what it is that generates money. Every other part of our business, I'm looking for someone to outsource it to, because I figure they're going to be better qualified, know more about it, and I don't have to maintain the support infrastructure for that. And that this company wants to grow very quickly, so their feeling is that if I outsource the essential things that must keep the business running to qualified outsourcers, I can then focus on our job, which is to grow the revenue stream.
Okay. Any other comments?
I think it comes down to, which leads to the last question, so I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I think that financially, it certainly is a great driving force, but I also think it comes down to time. If you are an employer, at some given point as the life cycle of your business grows, you are either performing in these functions or you are providing a portion of your time that's allocated to these functions. And so utilizing an outsourced person at a fraction of the cost, you are still able to provide this level of service. However, you then can go back to doing the piece of the shared tandem client, and we want to focus on growing the business. And I don't want to have to address these types of things, so I'm looking for a trusted resource that I can partner with to offload these responsibilities, and I can continue to grow the business.
Okay, good. Any questions about this topic for them? Let's flip the coin a little bit and take a look at the dark side of, if you will, of outsourcing. And that's the topic that's described as doomed to fail when outsourcing never works. In other words, this is not a one-size-fits-all. Outsourcing is not a general cure for whatever life ills are. So therefore, there must be situations where you probably shouldn't do it. It probably isn't a good idea. And the panel will now discuss that a little bit. Walter and Jay?
Yeah, he's wrong. Outsourcing always works.
I just got fired by I did the best I could for you guys.
You lasted for an hour.
I know, and I'm trying to work with you guys, but
You're doing good up to that point.
You're going to be outsourced.
I should be outsourced, he said.
It's important when a business owner is looking to outsource that he takes it serious. I'll use some instances from what I do in the human resource outsourcing perspective. I need a business owner who is engaged, who wants to provide bigger, better, more opportunities to their employees, whether it be benefits, whether it be better infrastructure, that's pro-employee. That's where their vision is aligned, that wants to see their company progress, whether it be financially or culturally, and they're utilizing us to help them with that. When a business owner is not engaged, when they don't care about their employee base, it's probably not the right client for us, and they're probably not a good client for any outsourcer, for that matter. It's very rare, but it does happen. Maybe once, tops twice a year, when I come up with a company, and after all of my conversations with that and conducting my due diligence, I will find that I really can't help it. I mean, they're running so efficiently on their own that I just have to high five he or she and say, keep doing what you're doing because you really don't need us. And we're very customizable. I can usually always find some sort of solution to increase their efficiencies or provide value to them. But it happens. So there are occasions when I just have to, hey, shake their hand and keep doing what you're doing.
Good. That means you're an honest man.
Well, hopefully. Now, outsourcing doesn't work on the flip side when you have an outsourcer that is not reputable, not on the up and up. So you have to do your homework as well. You have to check for certifications or accreditations, making sure that we're accredited and we have a surety bond in the amount of $11 million. So we're holding a lot of business cash. So payroll taxes, benefit contributions, 401k deposits. We hold a lot of money for a lot of our clients. If we don't have that surety bond, well, Bruce, our owner, could be in the Cayman Islands, within 5 hours. And it's happened. It's happened, not here, but.
Oh, you mean he's in the Cayman Islands right now?
Fuel the jet.
Yeah. Okay, Walter? anything else?
I think when I've done autopsies on the client engagements that have not gone well, I find a very common ingredient, and that is control. And there's no doubt about it. One of the you alluded to it with one of your first questions here. The business owner is inviting an outsider into the inner circle. And some business owners, no matter how much they might want to welcome you to the inner circle, they're constitutionally impossible to do that. So in our histories of engagements that have, where we've disengaged with clients, there's a common practice of the client was very attached usually to the how the work got done. And once we had done all our work to make sure the client got that we understood how they worked, all the crazy things they did, why they did those crazy things, and then when we start to do the part where we typically bring value, well, you've got this accounting step that you're taking 5 steps, and the software will let us take 2, and that would cut, an hour and a half each time we have to do this. If the client's not willing to unleash from the way things have always been done, we're probably doomed to failure. Because we can't start to add the value, and we can't start to create the efficiencies that we know are there. And over the 9 years we've been in business, the 3 or 4 engagements that wound up like that was, I think, the common ingredient, was an attachment to the status quo.
Please?
I'd like to add a little something to what Jay said about the engagement level of the owner. I think that when outsourcing has the potential to fail is when the owner won't let go. And when they understand that literally relinquishing control actually gives them more control. Because what they're attempting to do is free up more time to do the part of the business that they love. The other aspect is getting the owner to slow down enough to actually take a look at the business so that you have the opportunity to extract the information you need to actually make an impact. So as we take organizations through the next level process and through Mover, it's a time-consuming, in some cases, very tedious in the information that we need to extract. If they're running at 120 miles an hour and they can't slow down to 60 to give us the information that we need, we're not going to be successful because we can't prove out the theory without having the information we need to make the deliverables and actually get them the results that they're desiring. But also understanding that each one of us, although we can impact the business at a different stage, it's a time-sensitive type of thing. As results are immediate from the standpoint that we've implemented, but it takes time in order to achieve the measurables that an employer is looking for, regardless of which outsourcer that they're working with.
Anybody else here? I'm going to insert a question. Actually, in addition to the 6 topics that we're talking about now, we also have had some questions from other business leaders that I just have here that we could have used. It turns out we're probably not going to have a lot of time to get into them, but there is one that I think is a follow-on to what this conversation is, and that is, what questions, this is putting yourself in this position, what questions should I ask an outsourcer when I am considering their services? A lot of people wondered that, particularly if they've never done it before. Anybody?
I'll take that. First question, a lot of questions I get is, how big is your staff? Because with IT, you could have this big marketing thing out there that companies think you're a big IT firm, and it's truly 2 people in someone's garage, and they have a lot of customers. That customer doesn't know what's happening. The negative of that is, again, when the situation arises that those 2 people don't understand or can't solve, you're out as the client. You have to wait for them to figure it out. Whereas if the outsourcer, again in the IT world, has a staff and has people that they call employees, generally they can figure things out and solve problems quicker than someone that doesn't. So my advice to everyone is find out how many people they have, because it just makes a difference.
Okay.
I think that to piggyback on what Barry said is meet the team that would be supporting you. Find out where the facilities are located and stop by. I mean, I think a reputable outsourcer
So we'd have them come here.
yeah, would welcome them to come to their office.
Yeah.
You know, those are some of the things, going back to my previous answer, find out what accreditations they have or bonding.
You guys get asked that a lot?
I do, in my business, yes. Yeah, we're a member of
You
certain.
get asked about the surety bond?
All the time. It's actually something that I bring up because a lot of our competitors don't have it.
Mhm.
So
Really?
it's one of our differentiators.
Wow.
We jump through a lot of hoops for it, we pay a lot of money for it, so might as well put it out there.
Okay. Walter, anything?
I think 2 things. One, in addition to basically asking about capacity, I think you probably want to ask about experience. Ideally, you're not dealing with an outsourcer who's doing whatever you need for the first time. And every question we've talked about so far, those are all explicit questions that you could ask an outsourcer. I think there's one question, one essential question that you should be asking yourself that you may not be able to answer, to ask explicitly to the outsourcer, but it's definitely should be in your head, and it's the question you got to answer, and that is, how do I know that I can trust you? Because essentially what all 4 of us are doing, we're selling promise. You need to trust us. You have to trust us before we can begin to deliver that promise. So there's going to be a lag time between the time we shake hands and the time you start to see the benefits. And so at the back, somewhere in your head, you've got to, however it is you figure out how to trust people, you've got to figure out whether you can trust this person and their company.
I think it has also a little bit to do with the question matrix that an outsourcer poses to a potential client. If an outsourcer isn't interested in your who, what, why as an employer, then they're selling something that probably may not be a fit that you have that's a requirement, and they're trying to make their uniqueness as match, and you're probably not going to get real measurable results. And so if they're taking the time to really facilitate the conversation in a consulting role and going deep because they're really attempting to find out about your business, I think you pretty much will get a good feel that they're a subject matter expert for really the area that they represent.
Yes?
No, 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. Last but not least, dealing with an outside expert, how can they help me? I think we've actually implied a lot of that as we've gone down the road here, but just to make sure we cover it, promises made, promises kept. Maurice?
That would be me, and I'll repeat the same answer that
Maurice repeats his answer.
No, it's the simple sense of as a company starts to grow, there are certain milestones that they will hit if they're going to continue to scale and grow. The importance of each solution that's sitting at this panel can be implemented at a different stage of that company's growth. As the employer or owner, and again, I think there's a big difference between the business being a lifestyle business or someone wants the company to grow to really next level types of things. Growing to scale is costly, and it doesn't have to be as costly if you use an outsourced resource in order to help you grow.
Good. Anything else? Anything further about this?
I think the basic premise of outsourcing is you're going to improve the quality while simultaneously lowering the cost. So how is it going to benefit my business? That's it right there.
We good?